I believe every graphic designer should learn 3D, and if you're not learning 3D, you're completely missing out, and I'm gonna explain why. To give you guys context, I wanted to start learning Blender again after a long hiatus because I started learning it and I gave up because all the courses I was finding on YouTube that were free, which I'm very thankful for, by the way, but they were just so complicated to like follow along with. So over the last 6 months, I've been going on Instagram a lot to find inspiration from other creators, and I started to notice one thing. Everybody's work is starting to blend together. Like everybody looks the same, like their style is the same, you know, especially in the merch design world. And it's not to call anybody out. It's not everybody's fault. It's just, you know, we all kind of aspire to be each other, right? We all look at each other's work and we're like, oh my God, that's incredible. How do I do that? And then we go on YouTube and we find tutorials like mine, like other people in the space, and we try to mimic it, right? It's normal. We all do that. But I think it's gotten to a point where it's like too much, you know? And I lost inspiration for merch design because of that. I just don't find it exciting anymore. And it's not that I'm quitting, but I wanted to find, I just hit my knuckle on the desk, but I wanted to find ways to enhance my skills. I remember playing with 3D assets from Envato Elements and how exciting it was to download a 3D skull that I can rotate in any direction in 3D space and download it as a PNG and put it in Photoshop and use it on my merch designs. That had its limitations, right? So I began to like go down this rabbit hole thinking how 3D software or learning 3D software can truly enhance my graphic design skills. So a turning point for me was when I went online and I was looking for courses, and I came across one on Skillshare that I'll link below that completely changed the game for me and truly helped me understand Blender in a different way that I didn't understand before. And it almost demystified Blender because I thought it was this like crazy complicated program, which in a lot of ways it is. And today's sponsor just so happens to be Skillshare as well. If you don't know what Skillshare is, it's an online learning community that will help you explore, enhance, and discover your creative skills. They have a wide variety of courses on various topics such as photography, film and video, animation, and of course, Blender. This isn't actually the first time Skillshare has saved me. I remember taking a course by Aaron Draplin on typography and logo design, and it completely changed the game for my graphic design career and allowed me to charge more money because of that knowledge that it gave me. And Skillshare is giving the first 500 people to click my link in the description of this video 1 month of Skillshare Premium for free, so you guys can start learning today. So you're probably asking yourself, how does Blender compare to Photoshop? Well, first off, Blender is a 3D software. Photoshop is a 2D software made for photo editing. Now, there are some amazing photo manipulation artists out there such as Benny Productions, Boss Logic. Photo manipulation is great because you can mimic that 3D look, but I will say there are limitations in Photoshop because unless you have like an incredible, you know, artistic ability to paint in Photoshop, you will start to notice that you lack dimensionality, if that's even a word, in Photoshop, because the way light works in Photoshop is obviously much different than Blender, since Blender is a true 3D software. When you open up Blender for the first time, you're gonna see a cube, right? That's like the default object. And if you were to try to create that same 3D cube in Photoshop, you quickly realize that Photoshop is not the right tool for that job. My journey learning Blender has been rocky, right? I wanna go over that for a second because it started off like years and years ago. I remember my first tutorial was on YouTube and it was the donut tutorial, which many of you probably know about. Even if you're not into 3D, you've probably seen that tutorial of that guy creating a donut. He even came up with a newer version of it too. And it's great, okay? But I remember being so overwhelmed by it that I ended up quitting. And finally, with the newer version that he came up with, I ended up finishing it and I did create my first donut. The turning point for me was when I went on Skillshare and found a course by K1. I don't know if I got your name correct. If you're watching this, I'm really sorry. But his courses were just so beautifully crafted and well thought out and honestly easy to understand for beginners like myself. And I remember one particular tutorial, or a course I should say, that he had. He was going over building an entire scene that was more moody, which obviously fit kind of my vibe that I like. And he used a cube to create fog, and it completely blew my mind. In my last video, I mentioned his course too, by the way. But it was so mind-blowing to me how easy it was, or how he sort of demystified the node system in Blender, which historically for I think a lot of people is very complicated, right? A lot of the new skills I just learned, I can probably go conquer that donut tutorial now, no problem. I have a friend in the 3D space, his name's Brock Creative, and he recently released a 3D mockup completely free. I'll link his socials below. It further validated what I was saying in this video. So I reached out to Brock and asked if he wanted to add any value to this video, and here's what he had to say.
Hey guys, my name is Brock Creative. I'm a 3D artist and graphic designer from Melbourne, Australia. One of the most beneficial decisions that I made as a freelancer was to offer 3D services along with graphic design. Not only does having 3D as a skill set draw more attention to you as an artist, but it gives you a more diverse portfolio too. You'll gain a better understanding of lighting and composition because you can physically manipulate those in 3D space. It really opens up more avenues for you making money and standing out from what is considered a pretty saturated market. And it no longer limits you to stock photos or whatever images that you can find on Google. I started by making cover artworks for DJs in Photoshop, and then eventually that led to making custom 3D artworks and then custom 3D animations. Now I teach others how to learn and benefit from 3D tools like Blender. And I even offer 3D mockups for merch designers for free. And speaking of, Blender is completely free, and so is a lot of tutorials on the internet, so there's really no excuse. If you want to be a better artist, learning Blender, in my opinion, is the next step.
Huge shout out to Brock for doing that video for me, and I think that he made some valid points as well, like especially as far as like income goes and standing out in a saturated market. Now, graphic design is sort of like an umbrella term for everything that falls under it, right? So there's merch design, logo design, poster design. You could be just a poster designer and succeed in the graphic design world. But I think that he had a valid point there. Like, it is pretty saturated. And I think if you want to stand out and really make yourself worth more money in this space, I do think learning 3D is definitely the answer to that. And I don't think there's enough people that know how to do 3D. So you're instantly more desirable than a graphic designer that doesn't have any 3D knowledge at all. And that's not even including 3D animation, guys. I'm just talking about still images here. So at this point, you're probably like, 3D is cool. We get it, Charlie. And if you're interested in learning it, you're probably asking yourself, what software should I learn first? In my honest opinion, because there's a lot of them out there, I really think you should learn Blender and Unreal Engine 5 first, because Unreal Engine and Blender go together so smoothly. I personally am focusing more on Blender, but I'm using Unreal Engine's Quixel Bridge asset library, and basically I'm using those assets and importing them into Blender, which you could do seamlessly. And it just works beautifully for me personally. There's other software out there like Cinema 4D, but it costs a lot of money. You have to pay monthly as a subscription, and I just think it's not worth it, especially when Blender and Unreal Engine are free. And they have an amazing community. So it's a no-brainer for me. If you're gonna learn any software, start with Blender, learn Unreal Engine if you have time, and then use Unreal Engine's asset library, and you're golden. So those are my thoughts on Blender and why, as a graphic designer, you should learn it. I honestly believe that. And I've already created multiple projects from start to finish, and I've been absolutely loving it. And I haven't even used it for merch design yet, so I can't wait to see what I do with that. So if you guys want to learn Blender, now is the best time, because Skillshare has given the first 500 people to use my link in the description below free 1-month Skillshare Premium. So it's a perfect time to start learning. But yeah, my name's Charlie Pangus. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I will catch you in the next one. Bye.